I'm going to start with a quote by Margaret Mead. She was an anthropologist, for those of you who may have read her. She said, "Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has." I love her. So detention facilities, just a couple facts, and then I'll tell you about my experience interviewing a detainee. Right now in the United States of America, depending on whose numbers you believe, there are somewhere between 200 and 250 ICE detention facilities. 100 of those opened in 2025. More than 73,000 people right now are detained in ICE detention facilities. That number rose 75% in 2025. Again, depending on whose numbers you believe, it is thought that between 75% and maybe higher of the people in those facilities are not the ones that we were told were going to be locked up. They are not felons. Many of them have, various things in their past, but they are not hardened criminals. $39.3 billion in 2026 is being spent to turn warehouses into ICE detention facilities in the United States, with the goal of having 92,600 detainees. How many of you know how many detention facilities are in the state of California? How many? 6. There are 6 detention facilities that are all privately owned in the state of California. How many do you think are in Kern County? 3. Yeah. So the largest one in the state of California is California City. Has 1,500 detainees. Their capacity is 2,560. It's run by a group called Core Civic. They're one of the most notorious ones, and they have a very bad reputation. They've owned facilities like this and worked for states and in prisons for years, and were actually shut down in the state of California. California City is the largest. The smallest one is actually in Bakersfield. It's in East Bakersfield. It's called Mesa Verde. Second largest is in Adelanto. The third is San Diego, and there's one in McFarland and one in El Centro. Last for the data, I think the thing that probably hurts all of our hearts is what's happening with children and family separations. Since Trump 2.0 started, the number of children detained has skyrocketed. And right now, more than 4,000 children have been booked into ICE detention facilities in 2025. By law, there's supposed to be a 20-day limit, but many of these have been detained in these facilities for more than 100 days. The Dilley Processing Center in Texas is the biggest one. It is run by Core Civic, and they are paid by ICE approximately $180 million a year. And that's why we all saw people like little Liam Ramos. Those kids will never be the same. And those are our tax dollars. ICE detentions are big business. The billionaire class is making a fortune detaining these. Each of these gets approximately $150 a day per person just to maintain them. 10 days ago, I had an opportunity to go inside the California City Center. And the reason I did have that opportunity is because we have an angel amongst us right here in Ridgecrest. And her name is Kathy, and she is a deacon at St. Michael's Episcopal Church. She has spent she has a heart for immigrants, and she has spent the last year forming relationships with people in the immigrant community, in the veterans community, in her church community. And that is how we found this person. And the person that I met, her name is Angelica. When I met her last week, she had been in the ICE detention facility for 5.5 months. She has been in the United States of America for 40 years. She was born in Mexico. She was brought here as a child by her parents. She's married. She has 3 children. One of them is already old enough and has left the home. She has one that's a sophomore and one that's a senior. Her husband is a citizen and a veteran, and that is how we found out about Angelica, was from her husband through one of the veterans organizations. She and her husband have been very active. They're Catholics, and they've been very active with the youth group in their church for the last several years. Well, come to find out, 22 years ago, Angelica was caught shoplifting. And it wasn't a large amount. She wasn't incarcerated. She was given a fine. She paid her fine. She hasn't had so much as a traffic ticket since then. But when she is a DACA recipient, and when she went to the courthouse, as the law requires her to do, to renew her paperwork, ICE picked her up and detained her. So when we got there, it's like an airport setting, and you have to go through x-ray machines and double doors, and all the stories that you hear about what it feels like when that door clanks behind you are true. It's really creepy and scary, and I was actually frightened. And then I met Angelica, and I thought, if I feel like this, what does she feel like every single day, all day? I was pretty sure that night I was going to go home to my husband in my nice little house. She has no idea. No idea. And she's one of, as I said, 73,000. So they escorted us, the guard did, into a room, and the room is lined with windows, just like you see in prisons in the movies where you go up and you sit down in these little cubbies, and then the prisoner comes from back there, and they're on the other side of the glass, and you pick up a phone and talk to them, and they pick up a phone. And so I asked her, how how are you are you getting enough food? Are you eating? How's the food? And she looked frightened, and she's a little person. She looked scared, and she said the food was really bad. She said she doesn't really eat very much of it. She said the meat is it smells bad and it doesn't look right sometimes. She said that often anything with the bread product has mold on it. She said that the water is brown. She said that every morning when she gets up, she goes and gets boiled water. And that's what she has for breakfast every morning is boiled water. And so I said, if the food is that bad, how are you subsisting? What are you eating? And she said that they have a canteen. And again, here's where the angels like Kathy come in, because the detainees are allowed to go to the canteen once per day. And they have things in the canteen like chips and candy bars, stuff like that. And the money for the stuff that's in that canteen comes from people like Kathy, from humanitarian groups, from church groups, from veterans organizations. And so I'm going to give you a little bit of information about how you could help if you want to along those lines. The lights are on 24/7. They're given an opportunity maybe every other day or so to go outside. She doesn't generally go out. I asked her why, and she kind of looked around like she thought, maybe she shouldn't say why. And so I just left it and asked another question, but she clearly didn't feel safe going outside. She asked me, she held up her hand and she said, "Can you see my fingernails?" And they were chipped and broken. And she said that inside the facility, if you want to see a doctor, you have to fill out a chit and request to see a doctor. And in the 5.5 months she's been there, she's filled out 4, but she's never seen a physician. This is just a really short glimpse, you guys, of what is happening with our tax dollars. But what can we do? What can we do? Well, the one thing we can do is we can be a helper. And I will now quote from Mr. Rogers, one of my favorites, who said, "When I was a boy and I would hear about something scary, my mother would say, 'Always look for the helpers. You'll always find somebody who's trying to help. Real strength has to do with helping others.'" So if you want to be a helper, there's a lot that you can do. Being here today is huge. Contact your representatives. Um, starting with Professor Jones, and every single one of us has talked about accountability. We need to hold our elected representatives accountable. We need to figure out ways to do that. We need to stand up and let our voices be heard. There is an organization called QUESI. It stands for Current Welcoming and Extending Solidarity to Immigrants. Kathy is very active in this organization. We'll post them if any of you want to get a hold of them to volunteer your time or to contribute money. They're always looking for people to write postcards, anything like that, to the people inside or contribute to the campaign. You can also call St. Michael's Episcopal Church here in town to find out more if you do want to be a helper. I want to thank all of you for being here today. I really am grateful for our little community. We the people.